Wu Jin pressed his face against the small window of the human transport ship. Stars stretched out in all directions, but ahead of them sat something he had never seen before. The space station called Harmony's Edge looked like a giant metal flower floating in the darkness. Its metal petals glowed with lights from a dozen different alien species. "First time seeing aliens, Wu Jin?" Sora asked from the seat next to him. She had been his friend since they were children in Seoul. Now she was the lead diplomat for Earth's government. "Yes," Wu Jin said quietly. He touched the old leather bag on his lap. Inside were herbs and medicines his grandmother had taught him to use. He felt silly bringing them to a place full of advanced alien technology, but something told him they might be important. "Don't be nervous," Taeho called from across the small ship. He was the head of security for their team. "These aliens might have fancy ships, but they're just people like us," Sora laughed. "I don't think they're exactly like us, Taeho." Their ship docked with the station with a soft bump. Wu Jin grabbed his medical bag and followed the others through the airlock. The corridor beyond was huge, with a ceiling so high he could barely see it. Aliens walked past them in all directions. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of what appeared to be living crystal. A few looked almost human, but with blue skin and extra arms. "The meeting room is this way," Sora said, reading from a small device in her hand. They walked through the station for 10 minutes. Wu Jin tried not to stare at the aliens they passed, but it was hard. He had studied pictures of different alien species, but seeing them in person was different. They moved differently than humans. Some floated instead of walking. Others made clicking sounds as they talked. The meeting room was enormous. 12 different sections were set up in a circle, each designed for a different species. The human section had simple chairs and tables. The section next to them had what looked like pools of water for the fish-like aliens. Across the room, the insect aliens hung from the ceiling in web-like structures. "Welcome, humans," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Wu Jin looked around and saw a tall, thin alien with silver skin standing in the center of the room. "I am Q-Min, the medical chief of this station. We are here to discuss the void plague that is destroying our galaxy." Sora stepped forward. "We're honored to be included in this meeting. Earth wants to help in any way we can." Several aliens made sounds that Wu Jin guessed were laughter. One of the crystal beings spoke in a voice like breaking glass. "What can a young species like yours possibly do? You have barely left your own solar system. We may be young, but we have ideas," Sora replied calmly. Q-Min raised a hand for silence. "The situation is worse than we first thought. The void plague has now destroyed 40% of the galaxy. Entire star systems are going dark. We have tried everything our science can create, but nothing works." A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a map of the galaxy with dark patches spreading like infection. Wu Jin watched in horror as the dark areas grew larger with each passing moment. "The plague seems to target advanced civilizations first," Q-Min continued. "It destroys technology, then kills all life in the affected areas. We don't know what causes it or how to stop it." "What about evacuation?" Taeho asked. "Impossible," replied one of the insect aliens. "The plague spreads faster than we can move entire populations. And wherever we take the refugees, the plague follows." The meeting continued for hours. Each alien species shared what they knew about the plague, but no one had any real answers. Wu Jin listened carefully, taking notes in his small notebook. Something about the way the aliens described the plague reminded him of stories his grandmother used to tell about old diseases on Earth. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and a voice spoke in dozens of languages at once. "Emergency. All beings report to safe areas immediately. Unknown vessel approaching." The aliens in the meeting room began talking at once. Some stood up, ready to run. Others activated personal shields or weapons. Taeho moved closer to the human group. his hand on his weapon. "What's happening?" Sora asked. Q-Min was looking at a device in his hand. His silver face had turned, almost white. "Something very large just crashed into our outer hull. The sensors can't identify what it is, but it's massive. And it's alive." The station shook violently. Lights flickered, and some aliens were thrown to the floor. Emergency lighting came on, casting everything in a red glow. "It's in pain," whispered one of the psychic aliens, holding its head. "Such terrible pain. It's dying." More alarms sounded. Through the station's communication system, they could hear crew members shouting in panic. "It's huge!" someone screamed. "At least 200 meters long!" "What is it?" Sora demanded. Q-Min's device showed a fuzzy image of something covered in dark scales. "It appears to be some kind of ancient creature, dragon-like. But that's impossible. Dragons died out millions of years ago." "Not dragon," said the psychic alien, still holding its head. "Something older, much older, and it's infected with the Void Plague." The other aliens immediately began backing away from the screens showing the creature. "We have to get it off the station," one of them said. "If it has the plague, it will kill us all." "Jettison it into space," another agreed. "Immediately." But Wu Jin found himself moving closer to the screens instead of away. Something in the creature's pain reminded him of his grandmother during her final illness. The way it struggled to breathe, the way its eyes held both suffering and intelligence. "We can't just throw it into space," he said quietly. "Why not?" asked one of the crystal beings. "It's just an animal, a diseased animal." Wu Jin looked at the image of the dying creature. Its scales were black with infection, but its eyes were bright with intelligence. Because it's not just an animal. Look at its eyes. It's aware. It knows it's dying, and it came here for help. "Impossible," Q-Min said. "No creature could survive in space long enough to reach us, and certainly not while infected with the Void Plague." But Wu Jin was already moving toward the door. "I need to see it." "Wu Jin, wait!" Sora called after him. He turned back to face the room full of aliens and his human friends. "I'm a doctor. That creature is dying, and it came here asking for help. I have to try." Before anyone could stop him, Wu Jin ran from the meeting room, his grandmother's medical bag bouncing against his side as he ran through the corridors toward the outer hull where the ancient dragon lay dying. Wu Jin ran through the corridors of the space station as alarms continued to sound. Emergency lights painted everything red, and he could hear crew members shouting orders in languages he didn't understand. He followed the signs pointing toward the outer hull where the creature had crashed. "Stop!" a voice called behind him. Wu Jin turned to see Q-Min, the station's medical chief, floating after him on some kind of hovering device. "You cannot go there. The area is quarantined." "That creature needs help," Wu Jin said, not stopping. "It has the Void Plague," Q-Min replied. "If you go near it, you will die. Everyone who touches the plague dies within hours." Wu Jin finally stopped running. He turned to face the alien doctor. "Have you tried to help it?" "Help it?" Q-Min's silver face showed confusion. "It is just an animal. Animals cannot be cured. Of the plague. Nothing can be cured of the plague." "But you haven't tried," Wu Jin said. Before Q-Min could answer, another human voice called out, "Wu Jin!" Hai Wan came running up to them. She was the team's scientist who studied alien life. "I heard what you want to do. It's crazy, but I want to help." "Hai Wan, you can't," Wu Jin said. "It's too dangerous." "Maybe," she said. "But I've been studying the readings from the creature. Something doesn't make sense about this plague." Q-Min floated between them and the quarantine area. "I cannot allow this. Humans do not understand the danger. Your species is too young, too primitive to deal with something like this." Primitive. Hai Wan pulled out her scanner and showed them the readings. "Look at these numbers. The plague isn't just killing the creature, it's changing it. The infection is following patterns I've seen before. What kind of patterns? Wu Jin asked. Like an earth disease called cancer, but different. The plague attacks the part of living things. That makes them who they are. It turns their own bodies against them. Q-Min looked at the readings with interest, despite himself. Our doctors have theorized something similar, but we have found no cure. Because you're thinking about it wrong, Wu Jin said. He opened his leather bag and showed them some of the herbs inside. My grandmother taught me about diseases like this. Sometimes the cure isn't about fighting the disease with strong medicine. Sometimes it's about helping the body remember how to heal itself. Ridiculous, Q-Min said. Those are just plants. The plague destroys civilizations. It cannot be stopped by plants. But Haiwan was looking at Wu Jin's herbs with excitement. Wait, what if he's right? What if the plague specifically attacks advanced medicine and technology? What if it can only be fought with natural methods? That makes no sense, Q-Min protested. It makes perfect sense, Wu Jin said. Look at what the plague does. It destroys advanced civilizations first. It goes after technology and artificial things. Maybe it leaves natural things alone. The station shook again, and they could hear a low, painful sound echoing through the walls. It was like the moan of a whale, but deeper and sadder. It's getting worse, Haiwan said, checking her scanner. We're losing it. Wu Jin looked at Q-Min. Please, let me try. If I die, you can say that humans are too primitive to understand the plague. But if I succeed... Q-Min was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he sighed. Very well. But I will watch from the observation deck. If you show any signs of infection, I will seal the area completely. They made their way to the quarantine zone. Wu Jin had to put on a special suit that would let him breathe, but he convinced Q-Min not to make him wear the heavy protective gear the aliens used. When the door opened, Wu Jin gasped. The creature was enormous. It filled the entire cargo bay, its body coiled like a giant snake. Its scales had once been golden, but now they were black with infection. Its great head rested on the floor, and its breathing was slow and labored. But its eyes were what struck Wu Jin the most. They were ancient and intelligent, filled with pain, but also with hope. Hello, Wu Jin said softly, approaching slowly. I'm here to help. The dragon's eyes focused on him. It made a soft rumbling sound, almost like a cat purring. Can you understand? Me? Wu Jin asked. The creature blinked once, slowly. Wu Jin opened his bag and began pulling out herbs and tools. He had no idea if human medicine would work on an alien creature, but something told him to try. He mixed herbs the way his grandmother had taught him, creating a paste that smelled like home. This might sting a little, he said, gently applying the paste to some of the infected scales on the dragon's nose. The creature flinched, but didn't pull away. If anything, it seemed to relax slightly. From the observation window above, he could hear aliens talking excitedly. Some were mocking his methods, but others were watching the readings with growing interest. The infection rate is slowing. Haiwan's voice came through the communication system. Wu Jin, whatever you're doing, it's working. For the next 6 hours, Wu Jin sat with the dragon. He applied herb pastes to its infected scales. He gave it water mixed with healing plants. But most importantly, he talked to it. He told it about Earth, about his grandmother, about the herbs he was using. The dragon listened to everything. Sometimes it would make soft sounds, as if it was trying to respond. Slowly, its breathing became easier. The black infection on its scales began to fade to gray, then to a lighter color. Impossible, Q-Min kept saying from the observation deck. The plague cannot be cured. Our best scientists have tried for years. Maybe, Haiwan said. That's the problem. Maybe the plague can only be cured by someone who doesn't know it's impossible. As the hours passed, more aliens came to watch. The observation deck filled with beings from every species on the station. Some were amazed, others were skeptical, but all of them were watching. Finally, as Wu Jin was applying a fresh herb paste to the dragon's forehead, something incredible happened. The creature's scales began to shimmer and change color. The black infection faded away completely, revealing scales that were not just golden, but seemed to glow with inner light. The dragon raised its great head and looked directly at Wu Jin. Its eyes were no longer filled with pain, but with gratitude and something else. Something that looked like recognition. "You did it," Haiwan whispered through the communication system. "You actually cured the void plague." But as Wu Jin smiled and reached out to touch the dragon's nose, something happened that no one expected. The dragon opened its mouth and spoke, not in the universal language that all species used for communication, not in the clicking or humming sounds that aliens made. The dragon spoke in perfect Korean, the language of Wu Jin's childhood. "Thank you, healer," the dragon said, its voice like distant thunder. "I have been searching for you for a very long time." The observation deck fell completely silent. Even the station's alarms seemed to pause. Wu Jin stared at the dragon in shock. You can speak?" "I can speak in all tongues," the dragon replied, now switching to the universal language so everyone could understand. "For I am Vorthak, the chronicler, last of the first ones, and I have been waiting for the healers to return to the galaxy." The dragon's words echoed through the cargo bay and into the observation deck above. Wu Jin could hear aliens talking in excited voices, their translators working overtime to process what they had just heard. "The first ones?" Q Min's voice came through the speakers, filled with disbelief. "That's impossible. The first ones died out billions of years ago." Vorthak, the dragon, turned his great head toward the observation window. When he spoke, his voice somehow reached every being on the station at once, speaking to each in their own native language. "We did not die," Vorthak said. "We changed. We evolved beyond physical form, leaving only a few guardians behind to watch over the galaxy we helped create." Do-Yun, the human historian, came running into the observation deck. He had been studying in the station's library when the excitement began. "This is incredible," he gasped, looking down at the dragon. "In the oldest alien texts, there are stories about the first civilization. They say the first ones seeded the galaxy with life." "That is correct," Vorthak replied, somehow hearing Do-Yun despite the distance and barriers between them. "Long ago, when the galaxy was young, we spread life to empty worlds. We guided the first steps of evolution on 1,000,000 planets." Yun-Su, a young human engineer, pressed against the observation window. "But why are you here now? And why were you infected with the plague?" Vorthak's golden eyes dimmed with sadness. "Because I have been searching, young one. Searching for the species that was prophesied to return healing to the galaxy." Prophesied? Sora had arrived with the rest of the human diplomatic team. "What? Prophecy? Before we evolved beyond physical form, we saw a vision of the future," Vorthak explained. "We saw the galaxy would face a great plague, born from the galaxy's own attempt to heal itself. And we saw that only one species would have the power to stop it." Wu Jin, still sitting next to the dragon's great head, felt a chill run down his spine. "The void plague isn't really a disease, is it?" "Very good, healer," Vorthak said approvingly. "The plague is the galaxy's immune system. When civilizations become too artificial, too disconnected from the natural flow of life, the galaxy itself rejects them. That's why our medicine doesn't work," Q Min said from above, his voice filled with wonder and fear. The plague attacks artificial treatments because they are part of what caused the problem. Exactly, Vorthak replied. Your people have forgotten the most important truth about life. Technology can extend life, but only natural compassion and healing can truly save it. Hei-1 was taking readings on her scanner, her eyes wide with excitement. The dragon's biology is completely different now that he's healed. It's like his DNA has been rewritten. Because I am connected to the source again, Vorthak explained. The source is the natural energy that flows through all living things. The plague cannot touch those who remain connected to it. And humans are connected to this source? Wu Jin asked. Your species has never lost its connection, Vorthak said. While other civilizations grew more and more artificial, humans kept your natural healing methods, your compassion for all living things, your understanding that medicine is not just about chemicals and machines, but about caring for the soul as well as the body. The observation deck had filled with representatives from all 12 alien species. They were talking excitedly, some in fear, others in hope. This is impossible, said one of the crystal beings. Our civilization is millions of years old. We have science that humans cannot even understand. How can they be more advanced than us? Advancement is not about technology alone, Vorthak replied. True advancement comes from wisdom, compassion, and connection to the natural flow of life. Your people have great knowledge, but you have forgotten great wisdom. Tae-Ho, the human security chief, looked worried. What does this mean for us? For humanity? Vorthak turned his attention back to Wu Jin. It means your species has a great responsibility. The plague will continue to spread until all civilizations learn to reconnect with the source. Only humans can teach them how. But we're just one small planet, Sora protested. How can we heal an entire galaxy? The same way young Wu Jin healed me, Vorthak replied. One patient at a time, with compassion, natural wisdom, and the understanding that all life is connected. Wu Jin felt overwhelmed. I'm just a simple doctor. I only know what my grandmother taught me. Your grandmother was wise, Vorthak said gently. She understood what many have forgotten. Healing comes from the heart as much as the hand, from caring as much as knowing. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the station again. But these were different alarms. Not emergency warnings, but communication alerts. Cumin checked his devices. We're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Word is spreading about what happened here. Some species are asking for help. Others are afraid, finished one of the insect aliens. If humans can cure the plague, they will become the most powerful species in the galaxy. Vorthak made a sound like distant thunder. And that fear will cause more problems. There are those who would rather see the galaxy die than accept help from a primitive species. As if summoned by his words, new alarms began sounding. These were battle alerts. 3 fleets approaching, Yunsu reported from her engineering station. 2 appear to be friendly. The third, she paused, checking her readings. The third is from the Draghul Empire. They're powering weapons. Duyun looked up from the historical texts he was reading. The Draghul have always believed that strength comes from military power alone. If they think humans pose a threat to their dominance, they will try to destroy Earth before we can help anyone else, Sora finished grimly. Vorthak slowly stood up to his full height. Even coiled, he was taller than any building on Earth. Then it begins sooner than I hoped. The galaxy must choose between healing and destruction, between wisdom and power. What do we do? Wu Jin asked. We do what your grandmother would have. Done, Vorthak replied. We heal those who can be healed, and we prepare to defend ourselves against those who cannot. The dragon's golden scales began to glow brighter, and for the first time, Wu Jin understood that this was about much more than curing a disease. This was about the future of all life in the galaxy. And somehow it all depended on a simple human. doctor with a bag full of herbs and a heart full of compassion. The Galactic Council meeting room had transformed into something resembling a war zone. Representatives from 12 species argued loudly, their translators working at full capacity. Some demanded proof that humans could truly heal the Void Plague. Others insisted that humanity was a threat that needed to be contained. In-Ho, the captain of the human diplomatic vessel, stood with his team near Vorthak's massive form. The dragon had somehow folded himself into the meeting space, though his head still nearly touched the high ceiling. "The situation is escalating beyond our control," In-Ho said quietly to Sora. "Half the galaxy wants our help, and the other half wants us dead." Yuna, their communications officer, was monitoring dozens of channels at once. "Captain, I'm getting reports from across the galaxy. The plague has accelerated since news of the cure spread. It's like it knows we found a way to stop it." "Because it does know," Vorthak said, his voice somehow reaching only the humans, despite the chaos around them. "The plague is not just a disease. It is an intelligence, a living force created by the galaxy itself. It will fight harder now that it faces true opposition." Cumin floated over to them, his silver face showing deep concern. "The Council demands a demonstration. 3 colony worlds have volunteered to be test sites for the human healing methods. But I must warn you, if you fail, the Council will declare humanity a false hope and ban you from galactic space." "And if we succeed?" Wu Jin asked. "Then you will have enemies as well as friends," replied one of the crystal beings who had joined their conversation. "Some species would rather maintain the old order than accept that humans might save them." Vorthak's golden eyes focused on something beyond the station. "The Draghull fleet is 3 hours away. They have already declared their intention to cleanse the galaxy of the human contamination." "Contamination?" Sora's voice showed her anger. "We're trying to save lives. To the Draghull, compassion is weakness," Vorthak explained. "They have built their empire on the belief that only the strong deserve to survive. The idea that healing is more powerful than weapons threatens everything they believe." In-Ho made a decision. "We'll do the demonstration. How many teams can we send?" Wu Jin looked around at his fellow humans. "We only have 12 medical personnel on the ship, including me, and most of them don't know traditional healing methods." "Then we teach them quickly," Vorthak said. "I will share what I know of the ancient healing ways. But remember, technique alone is not enough. The healers must truly care for those they treat." Over the next hour, Wu Jin found himself in the strangest teaching situation of his life. He stood in the station's medical bay with 11 other humans and a 200-meter dragon, explaining herbal remedies and bedside manner to people trained in advanced space medicine. "The most important thing," he said, demonstrating how to prepare an herbal compress, "is to listen to your patients, not just with medical scanners, but with your heart. The plague attacks the connection between a being's body and soul. We have to help them rebuild that connection." Sang-Ho, an older doctor who had been skeptical, raised his hand. "But how do we know what herbs to use on alien biology? Their bodies are completely different from ours." "The herbs are just tools," Vorthak explained. "What matters is the intent behind them. When you apply a healing remedy with genuine compassion and hope, the patient's own connection to the source responds." Juhi, their cultural specialist, looked worried. "What if the aliens don't trust us? Some of these species have never even seen humans before." "That is why you must first heal their fear," Vorthak said. "Show them respect for their ways while offering your own. Healing is not about forcing your methods on others. It is about finding the bridge between what they need and what you can give." Yuna burst into the medical bay, her communication device beeping urgently. "Captain, we have our test sites. 3 very different worlds want to try the human healing approach." She activated a holographic display showing 3 planets. The first was covered in crystal cities that sparkled like diamonds. The second was a water world with floating biological structures. The third looked like Earth, but with purple vegetation. The crystal world is inhabited by the Kethmori, she explained. They're silicon-based beings who think purely in logic. The water world belongs to the Nethsal, who communicate through color changes in their skin. The forest world is home to the Yeltar, who are very similar to humans but with plant-based biology. 3 completely different types of life, Inho mused. If we can cure the plague on all 3 worlds, then perhaps other species will believe. Vorthak finished. But you must hurry. My senses tell me that the plague is preparing something new. It has learned that traditional cures can defeat it, so it will evolve. Wu Jin felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. How do we fight a disease that can evolve and think? The same way your grandmother fought diseases. That seemed impossible, Vorthak replied gently. With patience, wisdom, and an understanding that every patient is unique. The teams prepared quickly. Wu Jin would lead the mission to the crystal world. Sang Ho would take the water world, and a young doctor named Min Jun would handle the forest planet. Each team had 2 other humans and a communication link to Vorthak, who would stay at the station to coordinate. As they prepared to leave, Q Min approached Wu Jin with a warning. The Draghull fleet will arrive before you return. If they attack the station while you're gone, Vorthak will protect the station, Wu Jin said with more confidence than he felt. I am old, but I am not powerless, the dragon agreed. And there are others among the galactic species who believe in healing over destruction. We will hold the line while you save lives. The human teams boarded their ships and prepared for departure. As Wu Jin looked back at the station, he could see Vorthak's golden form coiled around the central hub like a protective guardian. No pressure, he muttered to himself as his ship entered hyperspace toward the crystal world. But even as he joked, Wu Jin could feel something changing in the galaxy around them. It was as if the very space between stars was holding its breath, waiting to see whether healing or destruction would win. In his medical bag, his grandmother's herbs seemed to pulse, with warmth, as if they too understood the importance of what was coming. Somewhere in the distance, the Void Plague was preparing its final assault on the galaxy, and somewhere else, the Draghull fleet was charging their weapons, ready to end the human threat once and for all. The race to save the galaxy had begun, and Wu Jin was no longer just treating a single patient. He was treating entire civilizations, with the future of all life hanging in the balance. Wu Jin's ship dropped out of hyperspace near the crystal world of the Kethmori. The planet looked like a giant gem floating in space, its surface covered in crystalline cities that caught and reflected starlight in brilliant rainbow patterns. It's beautiful, said Kyung Min, one of the other doctors on his team. And dying, added Hye Jin, their medical scanner operator. I'm reading massive plague infections in all the major population centers. As their ship approached the planet, they received a transmission from the surface. The voice was precise and emotionless, like a computer speaking. Human healers. This is Logic Prime Shental of the Kethmori Council. We have prepared a testing facility for your methods. Please be aware that our population places no value in emotional approaches to medicine. We require only proven, logical treatments. Wu Jin took a deep breath. This is going to be challenging. How do you show compassion to people who don't believe in emotions? Their ship landed in a crystal city that seemed to grow from the planet's surface like a living sculpture. The Kethmori who met them looked like people made of living diamond, their transparent bodies showing complex inner structures instead of organs. Welcome, said Logic Prime Shenatal. We have prepared 100 infected individuals for your testing. Please note that our physicians have already tried 47,000 different treatment combinations without success. Wu Jin looked at the testing facility. It was a sterile, perfectly organized space where plague victims lay on crystal tables like specimens in a laboratory. There was no warmth, no comfort, just cold efficiency. "Where are their families?" Wu Jin asked. "Families?" Shental's crystal features showed confusion. "Emotional attachments are irrelevant to medical treatment." "No," Wu Jin said firmly. "They're the most important part." Meanwhile, on the water world of the Nethsal, Sang Ho was facing his own challenges. The aquatic aliens changed colors constantly to communicate, and their cities floated on the ocean surface like living coral reefs. The plague has disrupted our color speech, explained flow singer Jae-min through a water-filled translation device. "We can no longer communicate properly with each other. Many have stopped trying to live." Sang Ho looked at the plague victims floating in isolation tanks. They were dim and gray. Their usual bright colors faded to almost nothing. "How do we heal beings who communicate through color when the plague has stolen their ability to express themselves?" Sang Ho asked his team. On the forest world, Min Jun was discovering that the Yeltar were the most similar to humans, but that made their situation even more heartbreaking. They looked almost exactly like people, except their skin had a green tint and their hair looked like leaves. "We understand what you're trying to do," said Tree Speaker Boram, their leader. "But we have tried natural healing. We are plant-based beings. All our medicine comes from nature. Yet the plague still defeats us." "Maybe," Min Jun said, examining a plague victim whose leaf hair was turning black. "You've forgotten something important about natural healing." Back on the crystal world, Wu Jin was having his first breakthrough. He had convinced Shental to let him bring the patients' families to the treatment facility. "This is highly irregular," Shental protested. "Emotional interference will contaminate the testing environment." "Watch," Wu Jin said simply. He began treating a young Keth Mori child whose crystal body was clouded with infection. But instead of just applying herbal compounds, he asked the child's parents to hold her hands while he worked. "Tell her you love her," Wu Jin instructed. "Love is an irrational emotion," the father replied stiffly. "Tell her anyway." Reluctantly, the crystal being spoke to his daughter in their mathematical language. But as he did, something remarkable happened. The child's crystal body began to clear slightly, and the plague infection started to retreat. "Impossible," Shental breathed. "How did emotional expression affect the disease?" "Because the plague attacks the connection between mind and body," Wu Jin explained while continuing his treatment. "Love strengthens that connection. Hope strengthens it. Caring for others strengthens it." On the water world, Sang Ho was making similar discoveries. He had asked the healthy Nethsal to swim close to the infected ones and share their colors through the water. "But they cannot see our colors anymore," flow singer Jae-min protested. "They can feel them," Sang Ho replied. "Watch." As the healthy Nethsal surrounded each patient with swirling patterns of color, the plague victims began to respond. Their dim bodies started to show faint flickers of their natural hues. The colors carry emotion, Sang Ho realized. Love, hope, community. Those feelings are healing them as much as any medicine. On the forest world, Min Jun was teaching the Yeltar something they had forgotten about their own nature. "You've been treating your bodies like plants," he explained. To Tree Speaker Boram. "But you're not just plants. You're people with plant biology. The healing has to address both aspects." He showed them how to combine their natural plant healing with human emotional healing techniques. Touch, words of comfort, shared stories, things the Yeltar had abandoned in favor of purely botanical treatments. As all three teams worked, something amazing began to happen. Word spread from the test sites to other parts of each planet. Families began gathering around plague victims. Communities started caring for their sick together instead of isolating them. And wherever this happened, the plague began to retreat. "It's working on all three worlds," Yuna reported to Vorthak from the space station. "The infection rates are dropping faster than anyone thought possible." But Vorthak's response was grim. "Good. because the Draghull fleet has arrived, and they are not alone. Through the station's screens, they could see massive warships surrounding Harmony's Edge. The largest bore the skull and lightning symbol of the Draghull Empire. "Attention, inferior species," came a transmission from the fleet commander. "I am war leader Tulgoth of the Draghull Empire. You have 1 hour to surrender the humans for execution, or we will destroy this station and everything in it." 1 hour, Vorthak mused. Enough time for one more lesson. The dragon's golden scales began to glow brighter than ever before. "Open all communication channels. Every species in the galaxy needs to see what happens next." As the healing teams on the 3 worlds continued their work, unaware of the approaching danger, Vorthak prepared for the greatest test of all. The galaxy was about to learn whether the power of healing could truly overcome the power of destruction, and the answer would determine the future of all life among the stars. The countdown to confrontation had begun, and Wu Jin, working frantically to save lives on the Crystal World, had no idea that his entire species now hung in the balance. The Draghull fleet surrounded Harmony's Edge like predators, circling wounded prey. War leader Tulgoth's massive battleship blocked out the stars with its bulk, weapons charging with deadly energy. 30 minutes remaining, the Draghull commander announced across all frequencies, "Surrender the humans, or watch your pathetic station burn." Aboard the station, Vorthak had coiled himself around the central hub. His golden scales now blazed with light that seemed to come from within the stars themselves. Around him, representatives from the peaceful species worked frantically to prepare defenses. "We cannot fight the Draghull fleet," Cumin said desperately. "Their weapons could destroy a planet." "We are not going to fight them," Vorthak replied, calmly. "We are going to heal them." "Heal them?" Inho, the human captain, stared at the dragon in disbelief. "They want to kill us all." "Because they are sick," Vorthak explained. "The Draghull have cut themselves off from the source so completely that they have forgotten what it means to be truly alive. They fear healing because it threatens the only existence they know." On the Crystal World, Wu Jin was experiencing the most remarkable thing he had ever seen. The Kethmori child he had been treating was not just recovering, she was helping other patients heal. Her crystal body glowed with warm light as she held hands with other sick children. "I don't understand," Logic Prime Shental said, watching the impossible scene. "She is transferring something to the other patients, but our scanners show no physical exchange." "She's sharing hope," Wu Jin explained. "And hope is the strongest medicine in the universe." Across the Crystal City, the same thing was happening. Families who had learned to express love were teaching others. The plague was retreating not just from individual patients, but from entire communities. On the water world, Sangho watched as the Nethsal began to paint the ocean itself with healing colors. Their shared emotions created currents of light that reached plague victims across the planet. "We had forgotten," Flow Singer Jamins said, his body now bright with joy. "We thought communication was just about sharing information. But it's really about sharing life itself." On the forest world, Minjun saw something even more amazing. The Yeltar were connecting not just with each other, but with their entire planet. The forests themselves began to glow with healing energy, and the plague retreated before it like darkness before dawn. "The planet is alive," Tree Speaker Bo Ram whispered in wonder. "We are not just living on it. We are part of it, and it is part of us." But even as the 3 worlds began to heal, the situation at Harmony's Edge grew more desperate. 10 minutes, War Leader Tulgoth announced. "I grow tired of waiting." Several peaceful species had sent their own ships to defend the station, but they were vastly outnumbered. Myung-Soo, the commander of the human defense fleet, knew they could not win a direct battle. "Vorthak," he said urgently, "if you have a plan, now would be a good time to use it." The ancient dragon smiled, an expression that seemed impossible on his reptilian features. I do have a plan, but it requires something that has never been attempted before. What? Inho asked. We are going to heal the entire galaxy at once. Vorthak's voice suddenly reached across space to the three healing teams. My young healers, it is time for the final lesson. Connect your healing energy to mine. Let the source flow through all of us together. On the three worlds, Wu Jin, Sang Ho, and Min Jun felt something incredible happening. The healing energy they had been channeling suddenly multiplied 1,000-fold. Through Vorthak, they were connected not just to their patients, but to every living being in the galaxy. What's happening? Wu Jin asked, his hands glowing with golden light. You are becoming what your species was always meant to be, Vorthak replied. The healers of the galaxy, the bridge between technology and nature, between logic and compassion. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. From the three test worlds, waves of healing energy began to spread outward. The energy traveled faster than light, reaching plague-infected systems across the galaxy. But more importantly, it reached the Draghull fleet. War leader! One of Tulgoth's officers suddenly cried out. Something is happening to our soldiers. They're putting down their weapons. Throughout the Draghull ships, warriors who had known only violence for their entire lives were experiencing something they had never felt before. Compassion, connection, the understanding that they were part of something larger than themselves. What? Is this trickery? Tulgoth demanded, but his voice was weaker now. He too was feeling the change. It is not trickery. Vorthak's voice reached every being in the fleet. It is remembering. You were not always warriors, Tulgoth. Your people once knew how to create as well as destroy. Lies, Tulgoth snarled. But even as he spoke, images flashed through his mind. Ancient memories of his species before they became conquerors. Times when they built cities instead of burning them. On the Draghull flagship, something unprecedented happened. A young warrior named Da Som put down her weapon and walked to the bridge. War leader, she said softly. I remember my grandmother's songs. She sang about growing flowers, not harvesting skulls. Other warriors began to speak up, sharing memories that had been buried under centuries of military conditioning. The healing energy was not forcing them to change. It was reminding them of who they used to be. Tulgoth felt his own memories stirring. His mother, teaching him to carve wood. His father showing him how to make music. A life before war consumed. Everything. This is impossible, he whispered, but his hand was already moving away from the firing controls. Throughout the galaxy, the same transformation was happening on millions of worlds. The plague was not just being cured, it was being replaced by something better. Connection, understanding, the knowledge that all life was part of one great family. We did it, Sunmi, the human scientist, whispered as she watched the readings from across the galaxy. The plague is gone. Not just stopped, but completely eliminated. More than that, Vorthak said with deep satisfaction. The galaxy itself has been healed. Species that have been enemies for millennia are reaching out to each other. The age of division is ending. Wu Jin, exhausted but triumphant on the crystal world, felt the golden energy finally begin to fade. Around him, the Kethmori were expressing emotions for the first time in their history, their crystal bodies shimmering with joy. What happens now? He asked. Now, Vorthak replied, you go home, and you begin the greatest work of all, teaching the galaxy how to stay healed. Years later, Wu Jin stood in the gardens of the Interspecies Healing Academy on Earth. Students from dozens of species worked together, learning to combine their natural abilities with human compassion and traditional healing methods. The Academy had become the heart of a new galactic civilization built on cooperation instead of competition. healing instead of conquest. Grandfather Wu Jin, called a young student, a Kethmori child whose crystal body sparkled with laughter. Will you tell us again about the dying dragon? Wu Jin smiled, feeling his grandmother's spirit in the herbs growing around them. Nearby, Vorthak dozed peacefully in the afternoon sun, his golden scales warm and bright. Of course, Wu Jin said, settling down among his students from across the galaxy. But remember, it's not really a story about a dragon. It's a story about what happens when people choose to heal instead of hurt. The children, human, crystal, aquatic, and plant-based, all gathered closer, ready to hear once again about the day healing saved the galaxy. And in his ancient wisdom, Vorthak smiled, knowing that the lesson would be passed down for generations to come. The galaxy had learned to heal itself, and that healing would last forever.